So last week, we talked about ways that we can make our relationship, our hobby with 5th edition more resilient so that no one company, regardless of what they do, can affect how we run this game and play this game for our group. And the big one was trying to break our reliance on digital tools for the most part, or particularly breaking our reliance on any single digital tool. I focused a lot on D&D Beyond because it's kind of the big one. But the reality is anytime you focus on any digital tool, you're kind of under the whims of what that tool is going to do or how it's going to change over time. But one way that we can keep our game resilient is by recognizing that we can use paper-based character sheets. So rather than just kind of say, oh, you should all use paper-based character sheets, which, you know, people are going to use them or not, or people like their online tools. And there's lots of different tools that we can use. Lots of people have been using spreadsheets and things like that. There's lots of advantages to using paper-based character sheets. And I wanted to talk about some of those today, both why you might want to consider it and ways that you can make it easier for you to use. And I talked to lots of GMs. I got lots of feedback about ways that people have been using paper-based character sheets that we can all share and learn from. So we're going to take a look at that. This is actually a draft of an article that I'm going to write on Sly Flourish, publish on Sly Flourish eventually, but I'm using it as sort of a guide for our conversation here today. And one thing that's really neat is like when you're using a paper-based character sheet, you're using technology that's 5,000 years old, right? There are concepts to using paper that have been around for so long, way longer than we've had mobile devices, way longer than we've had the internet and computers and everything else. So there's a degree of flexibility that you get when you're using a paper-based character sheet that you just don't get with digital tools. So why would we use paper character sheets instead of digital character sheets? What advantages do we have? So flexibility. You're not locked into anything. When you're using a paper-based character sheet, you can write anything you want on it. You can write any way you want on it. There's nothing that says this thing can only be this way. There's no issues with any of those kinds of things. You can use your sheet. If your group decides we really like 5e, we just wish we started with 5 extra hit points, all you have to do is add those 5 extra hit points. You never have to go back and like tweak at every level or figure things out or figure out how you can customize your hit points or anything like that. If you have particular house rules or particular supplements you're using that go against the grain of your digital tool, it's really hard to add those things in there. It can be really hard to add those things in there. Paper, it's super easy because it's super flexible. So flexibility is really important. Disconnection. Honestly, we could probably use a little less time focused on our digital devices. And if we can take our digital devices and set them aside for a few hours while we're playing our D&D game, you can draw pictures on a notepad, you can draw maps, and you can use your paper-based character sheet. There's an advantage to that. There's an advantage to living in the moment. I think we are living in like constant FOMO that there's some other thing happening somewhere on the internet. And if only I could get to the right URL to use the right app at the right time to connect with that, it'd be even better. It's like, how about you spend time with your friends right now enjoying the game that you're running? Live in the moment. And one of the ways we can do that is by disconnecting, and using paper-based character sheets helps us disconnect. Resilience. They'll last a long time. If you treat that sheet of paper really well, it could last the rest of your life. It could last hundreds of years. It could last thousands of years. Now, maybe you're saying like, I don't really need my character sheet to last 1,000 years, but there's an advantage when you have your paper-based character sheet. You're using your character sheet the way you use it. You don't have to worry about a tool being online. We've heard it where there have been weekends where whatever favorite tool people have been using to track their characters goes down for a couple of hours. Nothing's going to go down that's going to take away your paper-based character sheet. Independence. When you're using paper-based character sheets, when you have your book, you have your dice, you have your pencils, you have your paper, you're independent. You don't depend on anybody else. You don't depend on anything else. There's no tool that you're like, that my internet connection has to stay online, or that tool has to keep doing it the way I wanted to do it, or the tool has to stay in business, or whatever the issue is. You don't have to worry that your game is dependent upon the whims of somebody else, the whims of another company. You've got everything you need right in front of you, and there it's going to run. And nostalgia. There's just something fun about playing this game the way it's been played for 50 years. There's something cool about that. If you're a GM who believes in this, tugging on that nostalgia with your players is one of the ways to get them to think more about using a paper-based character sheet. Isn't it cool to play this game the same way we played? So that's why you might want to do it. And maybe you don't agree with me. You don't agree with me? Cool. You can't say nobody didn't tell you though, right? You can't say, hey, if you don't think any of those things are reasonable, that's fine. Right? If you think, oh, the internet's always going to be online, I never have to worry about that. My favorite digital tool is never going to change. It's always going to support me well. Well, you can't say nobody didn't tell you, because, things can happen, and things have happened, right? This is not hypothetical. There's definitely been times where online tools have gone down. There's definitely been times when companies decided to take online tools down that were dependent upon for play. There's definitely times where companies went out of business and you lost access to all this stuff. All of this stuff is happening all the time. None of this is theoretical. What about actually using it? What are some tips for actually using a paper-based character sheet? This is my favorite one, which is write down page numbers. If you have a big, thick book full of spells or combat maneuvers or whatever, and you add them into your sheet, but you don't want to write the entire description down on your sheet, write the page number down. It's a very simple trick. This is like hyperlinking from 5,000 years ago. You write down the page number, and it becomes much easier for you to reference, what is that spell? Flip, you find it, you read it. So write down your page number. Think of your character sheet as your custom index to the rule book. Right? That's one main thing. And talk to your players about it. Test them on it. Help them out. And it's a little harder because I got to remember to write it down. But boy, when they do it in the beginning, it is way easier to do it. Use index cards. There's lots of ways to use index cards along with your character sheet to handle things like if you want to track hit points separately so you're not wearing out one particular part of your character sheet, or you want to write down magic items, or you want to write down some of the information about the powers that you have. Index cards are a great flexible tool, both for GMs, but particularly for players, to track information in their character sheet in a way that's a little bit more disposable. Maybe you have a one-use magic item, you write it on there, you put a checkbox, you're done, you tear it up, we've used that magic item, and away it goes. And of course, use paper clips. Somebody brought this up. Use paper clips to connect it all together. Don't use staples, use paper clips. And paper clips to keep your index cards and your character sheet together. Real basic paper-based organization skills. Use sheet protectors. I got a lot of people that talked about this, that you can get for pretty low price, sheet protectors that you can slide your sheets of paper in. And the cool thing is then you can dry erase on it. So you can I used to do this in the 4th edition days. We'd use the online character builder, which is no longer up, by the way. You can't use it anymore, to take your 4th edition character sheets, slide them in, and then you could write on them with a dry erase marker. And it worked really, really well. So I did that many years ago, and I liked it. One thing that goes along the lines of putting your sheet in a sheet protector, other people took bits of packing tape. So you can actually get clear packing tape and put that over the hit point part of your character sheet. So you don't have to, if you don't have a character protector, sheet protector, you can put some packing tape over it and dry erase on that. And that actually works really well because you're going to protect that part of the character sheet, but you can use a dry erase marker and then erase it with your thumb. So you can do that for like the hit point area. You could do it for other areas. Again, those check boxes that you want to check off. If you don't want to constantly use a pencil and then erase, you could instead put a piece of tape over that and write over the piece of tape. I thought that was pretty neat. Another one for me personally, use quality paper. It doesn't cost that much more. Get good 32-pound paper. When you print out character sheets on that paper, it feels good. Don't get tissue paper. Don't write your character sheet on tissue paper. Write it on good quality paper. Spend the extra money to get that stuff. I had some really good conversations with other people about this, both on EN World and on the Sly Flourish YouTube channel. I'll link to both of those in the show notes for this if you want to see a whole bunch of different ones. I took those all together and kind of looked through them and took some of the best of tips that other people brought up more commonly. And I thought, or other tips where I thought, oh, that's a really good idea. One was write lightly with the pencil so that it's easy to erase. If you just change your technique a little bit so that when you're writing things down that you plan on changing, don't write so hard, and then it's not so hard to erase. Along with that, use a kneaded eraser. A kneaded eraser, instead of using the little orange eraser on the back of your pencil, which just burrows a hole straight through your paper, that a good quality eraser is going to make it way easier to erase. Somebody brought up using different colored pencils or highlighters to note different features or abilities, particularly if like action types. All my bonus actions are written using, orange. All my actions are written using green. My reactions are in purple. You can use color to help you reference your sheet and say, what are the actions I should be paying attention to? What are the bonus actions I should be paying attention to? That works well. Write in boxes. This was a neat one. If you have certain things like spell slots or short rests or combat maneuvers or whatever that you're tracking, you can write little boxes on your character sheet in pen, but then check them off in pencil. That way, if you erase them, the boxes stay, but the pencil erasers, the pencil marks will go away. It's a good way of like resources that you're continually going up and down with, hit dice and things like that. I mean, most of those are on the character sheet already, but if you have new stuff, like if you have a one-use magic item that works once per day, you can put a big ink box next to it and check that off when you've used it, and then erase the check and it won't erase the ink box. And this is another one of my own that I think really helps. Track damage done, not hit points remaining. This is weird. Instead of subtracting damage from your hit points, instead, you know what your max hit points are. Track instead the amount of damage you've taken. And it's just easier to add up. And I know this because I do it with monsters all the time, that it's way easier for me to add numbers up than it is to subtract numbers down. I don't know why, but I know I'm not the only one where that's the case. Counting up is just faster than counting down. So track damage done, not hit points remaining. Some RPGs, this is the default. Organize actions by action types. If you have a way to organize them on your sheet, again, the highlighting I think really works. Your actions, bonus actions, reactions. Note the types, so note which ones are actions, bonus actions, or reactions next to them. Again, the highlighter can help, I think is really cool. Some brought up that you can build your own sheet that's optimized for you and your character class. So if you really want to spend some time with it, you can make a character sheet on your own that is built for you, for how you like to operate with the character class that you're running. Quick reference sheets are another one. I like drawing pictures on the character sheet. Go ahead and draw a picture of your character. Be a kid again. Don't worry about mucking up your sheet. It's always kind of cool to see pictures of your characters. Don't worry about making your sheets perfect. Every one of those little soda stains, the little Cheetos, thumbprints, little scribbles, the wear and tear, all of those are things that make your character sheet unique and remind you of what your game was like. So it's kind of cool. In the same way that I think, go ahead and write in your books. I get yelled at every time I say this. Write notes in your books. It's okay. It now took a book that everyone else had to a book that is unique to you. So make your book your own. Go ahead and write in it. In the same way, don't let them bash up your character sheet. It's kind of fun to have them ugly. So those are all tips for how to use paper-based character sheets. To me, there is a distinct advantage in using character sheets that you are not dependent on any technology. You get to disconnect from your technology. If you have any weird house rules or any ways that you're mixing in stuff, you don't have to worry about whether your tool supports the thing that you want to do. Paper supports pretty much everything. So those are all good reasons to do it. And with a few of these tips, I think we can make it easier. I would love to hear more. So if you have more tips for how you've managed to use paper-based character sheets in ways that have made it a lot easier for you, I am all ears, because I haven't yet posted this article up, so I'm definitely interested in doing it. But really, I think there's just something fun. This is what makes our game, this hobby of ours, so powerful, is unlike almost every other major hobby that has become digitized. We still have control over this one completely. We still have the books in front of us, our pencils, our dice, our paper, and we can play it with our friends, and we are not beholden to any technology, any tool, or anything else. It's really a fantastic way to play the game. So consider using paper-based character sheets. Talk to your players about it. Talk to them about the advantages of using paper-based character sheets. Maybe challenge them a little bit and say, hey, for this game, we'd like to try using paper character sheets. Show them and have the players that are on board show the people who aren't how much more advantageous this style of game can be. If you enjoyed this show and you want to see more stuff like this, please consider subscribing to the Sly Flourish newsletter. It's absolutely free to sign up. You get an adventure generator free for signing up, and you get a weekly RPG-related email with tips for running your own games, plus links to all of the things that I do elsewhere. You can also support me directly on Patreon. Patrons get access to all kinds of tools, tips, tricks, source books, books of adventures, all kinds of stuff you get for being a patron of Sly Flourish. It's a really good deal, and it helps me put on shows like this. And you can pick up any of my books, including Forge of Foes, Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master, the Lazy Dams Workbook, and the Lazy Dams Companion, and all the fantastic books at the Sly Flourish bookstore. Links for all of that are in the show notes. Thank you all so much. Have a great day, and get out there and play an RPG.